know it's all sorts of goofy when the path of least resistance is making your own whole game. Have you ever wanted to play a tabletop role-playing game in a non-standard setting? Perhaps one such as a game that you and your friends enjoy? Or maybe even something as niche as a mod for a game. I mean, you could probably, with simple homebrewing, but maybe you want to make the game feel and work similar to the source material. It might not be so easy. You might, at that point, want to go use a tabletop game engine that's made for super duper homebrew stuff. Homebrew pretty much exclusively. There's a few of those. But even then, you are still reliant on a foundation that has its own rules and shenanigans. And that might interfere with your nonsense. At that point, you might just have to concede and make something from scratch. A time-consuming and difficult endeavor. Which, is the only reason that I can even begin to devise as to why Doom fans have yet to make a dedicated tabletop role-playing game for Doom, because they're too busy playing Doom. Maybe there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. Doom is definitely the productivity killer of all time. I'm definitely guilty of that. Regardless, I have come to fix this utter blunder upon Doom Society. Someone had to do it. Alright, before we go into the past to see what we can find, let's look into, I say the present very generously here, but when the alternative is practically ancient prehistory, it becomes a matter of relativity. But yes, other than that, the present. Let's see what sort of Doom games played on the old card and board are like in the modern day. The first and only thing you find when looking up Doom Tabletop or anything of the sort is, Doom the board game, an official one, which presents itself as a tabletop action strategy game, which is different from a role-playing game in the same medium. It's a pretty common genre for both unique original games in their own worlds and pre-established IPs. There are usually multiple pre-built missions that a party of 1 to 4 are supposed to play, with an additional Gamemaster controlling the monsters. It's much more focused on the game part than the role-playing part, so there's not that much room for making your own missions or plot lines and the like, at least in most of them. There's some exceptions. It's a game night one-shot sort of game. You bring it over to your friend's house or whatever, and you play it with a group of friends, and then, I don't know, you never play it again. Though, this Doom one does appear to have some pretty cool statues. Figures, whatever you want to call them. These are statues. They're thick. I'm not a statues guy, but I have a few plastic addicts among my friends. The game is, besides that, based off of Doom 2016. Besides that, I couldn't actually find any other games, official or otherwise. Seriously. The fact that Bethesda never hired people who are already making something like, I don't know, maybe Warhammer 40k to help make a Doom tabletop is baffling. I'm not even a 40k fan, but imagine the figures. They could sell so many figures or statues or whatever. You could sell that, it would be crazy merchandise. They would make money. They're burning money by not having this happen, man. I don't know. Maybe they don't do this because they think that the audience for Doom is not the same as it was before. And maybe they don't think that people would be interested in crap like this. But I don't know. They're a little silly for that one. That, and for better or for worse, this isn't what my game is like. It's not a full-on war game, mainly so the GM wouldn't have to like design navigable boards for every environment the players have to fight in. You have to have like the boards, and then you move around them. Octagonal, whatever. Stuff like that. It's cool, but like this is more along the lines of like D&D. You're supposed to go through a story, not have like fights, like just for the sake of fighting. No shit on 40k. It looks relatively cool. It's just not what I'm after, So there would not be much use for figures. We'll get more into how and why my game is that way later. But beyond that, the Doom 2016 board game, I did not find anything at all. Nothing, unofficial or otherwise. Trust me, I gave it a good look. But there was not shit. However, there is more to the situation than that. There is a distinct series of events that inspired me to make this happen. And it starts with some history. So let's head into the aforementioned past that I mentioned earlier. The story goes as follows. The fine gents at Yield and id Software, before the two entities, both known as John, breached containment and left the studio, all had their fair share of fun playing Dungeons and Dragons. As the story goes, Doom was inspired by an invasion from hell during one of their D&D games, caused by John Romero's character greedily stealing a magical artifact. After taking that sort of idea and moving it to a sci-fi setting, the rest was history. But a less known example of such shenanigans is that the original designs for the original Quake game, a top-down RPG once called Quake Fight for Justice, were directly pulled from their D&D games, Quake himself being one of the characters being played, and the world of the game being directly pulled from an ever-evolving D&D campaign ran by John Carmack, who seems to have been the de facto dungeon master, as he was the DM in the campaign that inspired Doom as well, it looks like, though I can't be too sure on that personally. Mind you, this is just simple research I did while making the script for the video. But yeah, regardless, like 90% of this D&D stuff was dropped in favor of the beloved eldritch and gothic aesthetics of the original Quake game, and we never got that top-down RPG, for better or for worse. So sadly, we never got to see the id Software Dungeons & Dragons lore for ourselves. Even sadder yet, being that the two Johns, being so busy on id Software's pipeline of revolutionary games and the engines they ran on, and eventually their departures, never actually got to make neither Doom nor the original Quake world into standalone tabletop games. Because the software engineer and game designer, it's sad, but it happens. Oh yeah, and for the Super Mario Bros. 2 of the Doom world, did you in fact have the knowledge within your brain that the demonic enemy from hit game Doom, known as the Kako Demon, is simply the head of an enemy from hit game Dungeons & Dragons, known as the Astral Dreadnought, crossed with a beholder from the same game? Frankly, I have enough faith in your knowledge of the simplest of quote-unquote video game lore, so I presume you may have already known that. If you didn't, I don't know how. It's like, just everyone knows that, I feel like. Alright, you can skip this part of the video too if you don't want to listen to me talking about me and my friends and whatnot and how this game came to be. Alright, for those of you still here, the people among you who are based, allow me to tell you how this game came to be. As stated during the opening of this video, yes, I wanted to make a Doom tabletop RPG. I didn't like any of the homebrew shenanigans, so I decided to make a game from scratch. Why? Well, I'm an aspiring game designer, yippee. I often come up with ideas for games that are too ambitious. I couldn't make them by myself because I don't have any other talents. Yeah. This, however, was different because, I didn't need help from an artist or a programmer because it's a tabletop game and not a video game. I did have help from my friends who I made this game to play with. That's the whole point. That's all the relevant information about me, really. I like Doom. I like Hideous Destructor. I do stuff, and I do things. Why so hideous? Well, really, it's quite simple. Like, the decision making behind this was simple to me, I feel at least. Hideous does a lot of things in this sort of setting, adding the basis for weapon variety and mechanics, which is, it's good. The game should have more going on than just shooting and moving and whatnot, because otherwise it would get boring. It would just be rolling the dice, And a lot of these mechanics help keep the player characters grounded in the sort of way that appeals to a lot of classic Doom fans who appreciate the survival horror aspect of the series. It's unstable and uneasy, and you don't know what's going to happen. You can't be certain because you're always in potential danger. But there still is plenty of the high points that you would expect if you're coming from the newer games, because I didn't just take after Hideous. I took a lot of elements from New Doom and Doom 3 and the original duology, of course, plenty of that. And on top of that, Hideous adds more opportunities for monster variety, which is among the more important things as well. The world of Hideous Destructor is also pretty convincing once you flesh it out. A lot of Hideous Destructor fans have their own sort of idea of what the world is like, and it gets very interesting. I've gone with my interpretation of what the world is like, but I've also included some of the ideas from other people, as well as everything that we can confirm. On top of that, I obviously meshed all of the details from New Doom and the classic games into it. It's an amalgamation game, so adding Hideous to it adds on top of everything. It's very synergistic. It just makes everything work. It brings everything together. I'm sure you get the idea. It just works. And, it has a lot of room for expansion. You can add monsters and weapons and items, anything you want, if you can give it all the stats and the weight and everything. We're going to get into the gameplay soon. So you'll see about all that. You can also just tell plenty of stories. You need to have a sort of game that has room for that if you want a tabletop role-playing game, like a real role-playing game. And you don't need to know much about Hideous. I don't think you need to know anything outside of the game from Hideous to play. And honestly, you might not even need to know much about Doom to wrap your head around it. you might not know what half the monsters look like if you haven't played Doom, but you know, that's what the GM is for, you know. But yeah, regardless, I don't expect non-Doom fans to go crazy over the game, but if you're a GM, your friends aren't into Doom and crap, I don't know, use this as a gateway drug. You have my permission. I think the game has good mechanics and you can make a story with it. Go do it or something. I don't know. I can't force you to do anything. Alright, so let's just establish this real quick. This section of the video is not a substitute for reading the main document or any of the other documents that explain the game and all of its mechanics and rules and everything. Same goes for the next two sections of the video that also explain other things. You don't gotta go read all the documents right this instant. No, this isn't homework. But if you're interested in playing this game at any point, in the past, present, or future, I don't know, time traveler head ass, you should probably at some point give the documents a good old look. Alright, so let's summarize shit. Yeah, we're 3 minutes into the video, I think. I'm allowed to swear. It's lightning round, motherfuckers. Yeah, it's my video and my game. I'm allowed to curse. Let's get into the mechanics. You have speed stats, two of them, running speed and quote-unquote burst speed. Those are your speed stats. They're measured in meters per second because I'm American, even I have to admit, meters per second makes more sense here than miles per hour. I couldn't validate miles per hour. It's not that important though. You go read the documents, you'll understand more about how this actually works. It's honestly a little arbitrary, but whatever. But there's also a bulk threshold percent boost stat. So you can carry an amount of things that an item's weigh bulk, which is, it's weight. Think of it as weight, I guess, for now. We'll get more into it later. If you have too much bulk, you're going to exceed thresholds and you're going to start becoming over-encumbered, which will lower your speed stat. You don't want that because your speed stat is critical to dodging attacks, which is the main way you will prevent your demise, is you have to dodge. If your speed stat exceeds the speed required to dodge an attack, you usually don't eat shit and die. That's all you need to know for now. Alright, so what about health? What about it? It's health. You take damage, and when you take damage, you lose health. Every 60 seconds in Africa, a minute passes. I'm kidding, there's more to it than that. So when an attack hits you, you take direct damage from it usually. Direct damage is not that big of a deal. What's a bigger deal is if it hits you and it gets through your armor. If that happens, you'll probably have a wound, and a wound will bleed, and bleeding is going to take away your health more than the direct damage. So what do you do about it? You have to stitch it with the synth flesh staple gun. If you don't, you will die. It's quite simple. The staple gun, or the synth flesh, consumes staples. The staples are made of synthetic flesh. When you do it, it pulls out the bullets and staples the flesh back together, inflicting pain but closing the wound. And when you staple someone else instead of stapling yourself, it's more efficient in speed and resource consumption. Burns are similar. You can get burnt, and those are measured in a number as well, similar enough to wounds. But burns don't directly kill you. They just cause you to take more pain. If your pain reaches 100 or your health goes down to below 10% of your maximum health, you'll be incapacitated. Both of those are bad, but if you're at less than 10% health, you're a little worse off. more about that on the main dock and the combat dock you'll see. As well as this, characters have stamina. There's different ways to earn stamina back after using it. There's different maximum stamina caps, and different uses for stamina, and other such things. It depends on your character class and your perks that you have unlocked. Using up your stamina makes your weapons less accurate. You can go look at the weapon equations on the main dock. If you move, your weapons also tend to be less accurate, but depending on the weapon, it's honestly not that big of a deal. Different weapon types have different strengths and weaknesses in terms of their equations. But if you level up your weapons, you get a bigger dice. More on that later. You get to roll with a bigger dice, and therefore you can move more and still get hits. And, well, how do you level up your guns? You kill things. It's a silly question. Go play video games. You've never played a video game before? Leveling up your character is literally working off of the same system. More on both of those things later. You'll see. Alright, more on inventory management. We're not going to talk about like the math itself, because there's a bit of math. You can worry about that when you're making your character and playing the game. But let's talk about like the actual mechanics. So your main inventory is your pockets. Marines have pockets, plenty of pockets. And they can store up to 100 bulk of stuff by default. You can expand that in a few ways. Bulk, to elaborate on what it is in world, is the UAC's proprietary measurement of weight. That also takes into account the size and shape of an object. Basically, how bulky is it? How difficult is it to keep on you and carry around, you know? It makes sense, I guess. Backpacks are like your secondary inventory. Everything in your backpack, you can't get to it very quickly, but you have it on you and you carry it with you. They can store a bunch of crap. There's a few different kinds of backpacks that'll help you in that regard. They store different things and different amounts of things. You can toss backpacks off of you at any time very quickly to keep the weight from weighing you down when you want to fight. There are also belt loops, which are on your belt. You can put a bunch of different things in the belt loop, like one-handed weapons, melee weapons, medical items, ammo pouches, a single unit of a large ammo type, and more, including putting a battery on the belt loop to power items like the light amp goggles. The batteries are also used for the plasma gun and the BFG and a couple other things. I think that the belt loops are one of the most fun mechanics I came up with when designing how the inventory should work. You only have so many belt loop slots, but you can unlock more. Everything on the belt loop weighs less and can be grabbed quicker. That's the main benefit. So your action speeds can be improved. The action speeds are listed on the combat dock. And the way that works is a little funky, but it makes the game work. So go read up on the combat dock. Those are most of the mechanics, but like the main mechanics. But now we can get into more detail about Alright, I take it back. There's no more swearing, less swearing, because I'm not that vulgar, alright? But first and foremost, there are classes. There are classes of Marine. 4 classes to choose from in the vanilla game. Each class comes with an inherent stat buff and a special ability. You get to choose one class, only one, and you usually pick your class when making the character. And the ability of your class is exclusive to that class. No other class gets to use that ability aside from a teensy little itsy bitsy like exception that you don't really have to worry about, I don't think. It's a late game thing. But yeah, the classes are as follows. there's the Bruiser, the first class, the big tough class. The Bruiser gets a handsome reward of plus 25 max health and 10% bulk threshold increase stat, which is pretty good. The Bruiser's ability is to drag things, such as large corpses and objects, like the Cacodemon corpse, which can be used as cover. And the Bruiser can also drag incapacitated allies, which repositions them, gets them out of there, puts them somewhere safer, you know? And then you can pick them up without getting shot at. You know, it's just an all-arounder class. It is a little good at survival, a little good at speed, and a little good at utility. You can rely on the Bruiser to be able to function. It's great. Alright, the next classes are, they're more specialized than the Bruiser. And the second class is the Bootman, which is a speed-centric class with 10% buff to all of their movement speed stats, that being running and burst speed, as mentioned earlier, which is pretty good for dodging attacks, as well as a passive +3 maximum to their stamina cap, allowing them to dodge easier and more often in dangerous situations, you know? But if you overdo it and spend all of your stamina, you might do more harm than good. But when push comes to shove, the Bootman can dodge better than any other class by a decent bit. The third class is the Technomancer. With a passive +5 knowledge stat, they gain XP quicker than anyone else, with the ability to check things for secrets and traps. They are a valuable part of any team for their above average intelligence for Marines, you know, Marine standards. They're more intelligent. The fourth and final class is actually a class that isn't just blatantly obvious and based off of Doom the Roguelike. I do like Doom the Roguelike, but I wanted to make a fourth class because 4 is a good number. So you can have 4 different player characters, each with a different class. Just made sense. So the Tormentor is the final class, and Tormentors are a group of Marines that idolize the Doom guy. You know, the normal setting for this game is after Doom 64, but before Doom 2016 on the timeline, meaning that Doom guy has been presumed dead for an amount of time greater than 0. But in his wake, he's become a pseudo-religious figure. And, you know, he is well-liked, to put it lightly. You can read more about that on the main doc, where I explain a little bit more of that lore. Tormentors, their unique stat buff is that they get +1 health regen. I didn't explain health regen, but when you're not bleeding, you regenerate health. Crazy. You can boost it with medicine and stuff, and this +1 adds on top of any sort of like medicine or whatnot, like stims. Stims are important. Go learn about those. But yeah, and their ability, which makes it very clear that this is the survival class. This is your tank in a sort of indirect way. Their ability stops all bleeding for 2 turns and halves all of the pain taken for those 2 turns at the cost of a point of stamina. The point of this is to, if you're not bleeding, you don't have to stitch yourself up for that amount of time. So you can stitch up your allies to keep them from dying. And then you can worry about yourself, you know? So it's a sort of teamwork-centric survivalist. It's supposed to be sort of selfless in that way, but you can use it selfishly. You definitely can. But yeah, I just think that's a pretty cool class that I came up with. That is not derivative of Doom the Roguelike, so I'm pretty proud of that one. The next element of character progression is weapon proficiencies, perks, and experience points, just in general. Alright, as I stated earlier, you get XP from killing enemies. Usually you get half of the XP you normally get if you assist in killing an enemy, but don't land the killing blow. More dangerous enemies, giving you more XP, obviously. Of course, you may also earn the XP at the discretion of the Game Master, or you may level up at the discretion of the Game Master. You know, if your campaign isn't meant to be like a full, super long campaign, you might need to use that one. And when your character levels up, you get 1 point to spend on perks, or 3 points if the level you reached is a multiple of 5. You also get 3 perk points when you start making your character. When you earn perk points, you can spend them to spec into more than 85 perks, or save them for more expensive perks or later perks. There's Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 perks. Tier 1 perks are all able to be unlocked at the start. There's 50 of them. There's no requirements. You can get them as you please. Tier 2 perks cost 2 points and require you to spec into a certain set of Tier 1 perks before you can unlock them. There's a little more than half of the amount of Tier 2s as there is Tier 1s. There's just about double the amount of Tier 1s, or maybe a little less. Tier 3 perks cost 3 points. Shocker. And require you to max out a Tier 2 perk as well as 2 other Tier 1 perks, if that makes sense. You know, some perks can be spec'd into multiple times, obviously. Not shocker. But they're just about half, if I have to guess, as much one purchase perks as there are ones that you can get multiple times. You can learn more about perks on the character progression doc. It's something that took a lot of time to make enough perks, to make about 85, I think. There might be more or less, but I think about 85 that are all mechanically worthy and have a purpose. Shit was kind of crazy. Took up most of the time, if I had to guess, of making the game so far. Weapons also earn XP, just like your character, but it's not the weapon itself earning the XP, it is your proficiency with the weapon that is leveling up, so to speak. So if you level up using one gun, your skill carries over to a copy of the same gun. You earn weapon XP when you land the killing blow on an enemy, and the XP goes to the weapon you use to land the killing blow. Unlike the character level, the weapon level has a level cap of 5 levels. This is for a few reasons. See the gun accuracy mechanics. I believe I mentioned it earlier. When you level up your weapon, you get a bigger dice to roll, which increases your capacity for accuracy. Bigger rolls means more hits and more crits, which means more damage, and it also means that you can move faster and you're more likely to hit your shots, which is pretty good. In this way, it creates a sort of dynamic where you start off weak. Your weapons are weak at first, but become very deadly. But at that point, what is stopping you from just mastering the one weapon, or the 2 or 3 weapons that you want to use? A few different things are in play to encourage you to use many weapons. For one, there is no single weapon that can solve all the problems in the game, efficiently at least. Some are overkill against grunt enemies, so it's a waste. Some are not sustainable. Some are both. And sometimes your ammo just isn't going to be plentiful enough that you can use one thing, so you have to use a variety. On top of this, leveling up every weapon comes with very good just things, because every weapon has 3 perks locked behind leveling them up at proficiency levels 1, 3, and 5. the level 1 and 3 perks usually are useful perks that are usable for multiple weapons, usually just related weapons, you know? While the level 5 perk is just for the weapon it's locked to, usually as a weapon mastery reward, letting you use the weapon better in more situations or more effectively or any other such things. Lets the weapons reach their full potential, you know? And unlocking these useful perks is key to becoming very powerful in the game. And yeah, it's just good to unlock all these perks because they are really good. I made sure these ones were very worthy perks. And that's a big appeal of the weapons mechanically. The more weapons, when I have to make modded weapons for this that aren't the vanilla weapons, I'm gonna have to give each of them perks, and that's gonna be a lot of the appeal of the weapons. So it's a big deal. You can look into it on the item document, which explains all of the weapons. So the current state of being a game master for this game is a little quirky, but let me explain, because the monsters in Game Master are obviously very critical in making the game function. The game is designed with the Game Master making up their own unique monster or monsters to introduce to surprise the player, give them something unexpected, unknown to them, that has a unique mechanic or something, you know? But we're so early into the game's life, I decided it was worth it to keep the monster doc not publicly available to everyone, because discovering and identifying monsters, and once you identify a monster, basically, the Game Master gives you their stats, their description, and their mechanics, their attacks, everything. And that is like seeing something you've not seen before, and then you fight it, you identify it, and then eventually you'll learn what it does. That's a mechanic in the game. And I wanted that to be something like just notable, just a part of the game. And since we don't have custom monsters yet, and I don't expect that people to want to do that yet, I have to prove myself first. I'm giving it only to Game Masters. If you join the Discord server with your players and ask me, I will give you the Game Master the doc. The Game Master should not give it to the other players. It explains how to Game Master, what all the monsters do, and there's a lot of monsters, and they all have different sort of mechanics going on, and different purposes, and other such things. In that way, the players can't cheat and look at the monsters before they're supposed to and learn everything that they do. Not that it's that big of a deal, I just think that since we're basically testing the game is feature complete, but we're testing it now to make sure that everything works as it should, so that way we can improve it, that was something worth doing. So yeah, please join the Discord server. It's gonna be where I give all the updates to the game, and announce them, and announce expansion packs and mods, and we just talk and we meet and we get players so game masters can have players to play with, and vice versa. It's gonna be great. We also have a cool Discord icon. You saw it at the beginning of the video. My friend made it. It's kind of baller. Join, or the Babawin will assassinate you. It's really quite simple. You thought we were Jover? No, it's not Jover. My work never ends. I work and slave over everything I do forever. So while I'm playing the first big campaign of this game with my friends, which has been the plan all along, I will also be developing quote-unquote expansion packs, which is the homebrew or mods of the game. The game is designed this in mind, as I've mentioned multiple times. You're just going to be able to add whatever you want to it. I've made it so it should be relatively streamlined. What's the difference between a mod and an expansion pack? I made the expansion packs. They're official. Or they're quality enough that I'm willing to go, this is really good, this is an expansion pack. Either or both in my case. Because I want them to be just as quality as vanilla. Just as mechanically sound and diverse, adding worthwhile things to the game. And that's how you earn that distinction if you ever want to make mods. You just gotta work in the oven. You gotta put it in the oven for long enough. So first, I probably just have to make a pack that adds in non-vanilla ammo types that a bunch of weapons are going to want to use. A similar situation in Hideous, except here I'm only going to be adding the necessary ammo types, and if you want to use something oddly specific, you got to put it in with your mod, because I don't want to overinflate the ammunition market. I think that's one of the things that was tricky about setting up the mods for Hideous Destructor, is that you had to change all the drop rates, so there wasn't just a bunch of useless ammo. Because I think the vanilla way Hideous handles that is very good. But it's a little tricky. With this, it should be easier because it's just up to the GM, Alright, so first and most obvious, weapon packs. All the homies love weapon packs. I've gotten permission from the developers of the Hideous Destructor modded weapon collections, Pepper Grinder, and Bangers of Nash, that I can adapt the weapon packs into this game. With both of the leaders of those projects providing lore for the roster of weapons, since a vast majority of the weapons from these packs are very unique and very cool, providing new opportunities for unique weapon mechanics. It's very exciting to have it be official. It's official, which is pretty crazy. I do really enjoy these weapon packs when playing actual Hideous Destructor, so it's pretty awesome. As well as this, I plan on making an adaptation of the Hexadoken pack as the boss expansion, as in the boss bolt-action rifle, adding a bunch of different boss rifle types that fire different ammos. Since some of these weapons use ammo types that don't have weapons with scopes, having a weapon with a scope that fires these ammo types is relatively unique. And they otherwise wouldn't get the chance. Also, there's just some pretty funky, interesting weapons in there, just in general. The expansion will probably also let you take the scopes off of a boss and do something with it. We'll figure that one out eventually. There's also plans and scheming for even more original weapons, not from any Hideous mod or anything. Monsters too. My friends and co-designer have their own ideas for stuff they want. Stuff like a pistol expansion, energy weapon versus demon weapons expansion, explosive and machine gun expansion. That one's mine. Probably even more. There's more. We just haven't come up with it yet. Alright. On top of that, an official adaptation of the Mutated Monsters monster expansion for Hideous is something I also have permission for. It's based on adapting all of the Doom 64 enemies and including cut enemies from Doom 2 as unique monsters, alternate versions of all the enemies basically, and they're cruel and unusual and fucked up. And that's really quite simple. They're fucked up. They're harder. And criminal. Yeah. Finally, and potentially most exciting, is a huge expansion I have planned, officially adapting the awesome Power Suit mod for Hideous into this game, though mainly mechanically, which is the coolest part in fairness. I plan on doing my own thing aesthetically and lore-wise to fit within this game's particular shenanigans, and the developer of that mod was okay with that. Yeah, and on top of that, I'll add a 5th Marine class, the Roboticist, as well as the Derp and Herp from Hideous Destructor, which are 2 little robot drone thingies. The Derp is a little remote control tank treaded pistol, little dinky small thing. It can shoot automatically with AI, you know? The Herp is similar, except it's a 4mm chain gun turret, you know? It is, in fact, a damn turret. I was very much considering adding this to the 0.5 version vanilla, but I decided that if I really wanted to make this a thing, I would want to have a couple perks for it, and just in the class, all sorts of things. And I feel like if I added anything more to vanilla at this point in terms of perks and crap, it would get to be bloated, and I didn't want that. So I decided at the very least I would delay it. And it was an easy decision to go, yeah, let's put this in with this. It's all thematically related to one another. It's perfectly fine. It was an easy choice to make. But yeah, mech suits. Who's gonna say no to mech suits? Like, granted, I feel like to some people mech suits might be a bit out there for Doom, but shit's badass. And yeah, and this one's gonna come way later than the other ones because we need powerful monsters to make it worthwhile, because it's supposed to be really strong, for when you can't do things just normally because it's too hard. You get the mech suit, but to balance it you have to maintain and reload it from the outside, so you either need to get your teammates to help you or do it your damn self. That's how it works in the mod, and I think that's just kind of badass. That's what Hideous is all about, is you get the good with the bad. You don't get one or the other. You have to take both. And that's a part of why it's so mechanically strong and just works. Like I said, just in general, the game works. It's feature complete. You can play it right now. Yeah. It's crazy. It's my passion project, and I think it's turned out great. I'm gonna keep supporting it for a long time. let me be frank. If I haven't convinced you yet that this is something worth checking out, there's no person or thing that could convince you to do anything except maybe play Doom, which is fair enough, really. But yeah, join the Discord, read the documents, like, and subscribe.